Obviously, we have to start with Capitol Hill. Jerome Powell just on the Hill. He's under really direct pressure from President Trump, or President Trump is putting pressure on him to cut those interest rates. But he's planning to wait. He's citing inflation. How do you expect this to be received by the business community?
I think Powell's comments are probably right in line with what the markets and the business community are expecting. I've said this a number of times. We're likely in a disinflating world, meaning goods, ironically, are disinflating globally. We have enormous overcapacity, and the U.S. is primarily a service sector economy. Having said that, we're not exactly clear what the level of tariffs is going to be, and they're working their way through the economy. So he's being appropriately careful, in my view, to try to make sure that before they move, they've accurately assessed the impact of tariffs. I think that could be as soon as July, but more likely September. And the reason more likely September is sometime in July, most likely, Trump will put out a provisional set of tariffs, and we'll see what those are. And it may be too soon to move in July, but I think by September, it's very possible the Fed will be moving.
You know, you and I have sat down and spoken several times, and each time we do, the uncertainty of tariffs comes up. It still isn't certain. So you talk about you're hoping, in July it could be a little bit different, but it could also fluctuate in July if you look at history and what's happened up until now.
Yeah, and so since April, I would argue that was probably the height of the uncertainty. I think since then, with the 90-day pause, with some clarity that we've set a provisional 10% rate, not the early April Liberation Day rates, I think the business community is moving toward greater clarity, but we're not quite there yet. And most business leaders I talk to are already planning for how much they're going to negotiate with suppliers, how much will they take out of margin, how much, if any, will be put into price. I think the business community is moving, but they do need, I think they would be helped by a couple of more steps, but we're getting there.
We talked to one business leader at the beginning of the administration. We talked to Ross Perot Jr., who talked about he was thinking about putting a line in contracts really to get ready for tariffs and how to handle them.
Yeah, that is, by the way, that's already happening. And so when I talk to business people all over the country, the word surcharge is in all sorts of bills. It's not like prices are not already reflecting this surcharge, but some prices are going up. Some prices are actually going down to help offset it. And the other thing is you got to always remember we have enormous overcapacity in goods globally. And so that may give U.S. buyers a little more negotiating leverage.
And right now there is a ceasefire in the Middle East. But do you believe everything going on and all the fluctuations also adds to uncertainty in the economy?
I think the Middle East could have if it expanded. But I think if it's contained, I think businesses are looking beyond that. I think the other things, there's some positive uncertainty, regulatory change. I think businesses are optimistic about. Immigration is a big topic among business people because we have shut off the border appropriately, deporting criminals. But there are 10 million plus workers in this country that are undocumented, that are critical in construction and in services and agriculture. And businesses that group is uncertain whether they're going to be allowed to stay, and that creates business uncertainty. So I hear a lot about labor from businesses. And then you've got a tax budget bill, which earlier in the year we thought was going to be more contractionary. I think as we sit here now, it may be more likely neutral or even a little expansionary from a fiscal point of view. So those are the pieces of the puzzle that businesses are struggling with.
Among the areas of uncertainty are colleges and universities. You sit on the board of Harvard Medical School. Obviously, Harvard is having some issues with the White House. What do you think happens next?
So I'm going to stay away from the blow-by-blow of it, but I would say the following. As we go through this period, one of the critical things I think that's important for the United States is that we maintain our institutional framework. And what do I mean? What's made the U.S. exceptional? Magnet for talent, superb universities and higher education, innovation. I do believe whatever the dispute is with Harvard, I'm hopeful that will, in the fullness of time, get resolved. I think it's in the interest of the United States if it does. It's one of the pieces of the puzzle that makes the U.S. exceptional.
You know, sitting here in Texas as a Texas bureau chief with the global vice chairman of Goldman Sachs, I do want to talk about the financial growth here in Texas. And now you've got the Texas Stock Exchange that may begin trading in early next year. It's expected to trade next year. Right. NASDAQ putting a regional headquarters here, New York Stock Exchange increasing how many people they have here in Texas. Talk about what you think is the next step of the growth here in Texas.
So the story of Texas is migration of people and firms to the state. It's been going on for more than 10 years, and that's why the population of the state continues to grow and the workforce grows, and businesses are still regularly looking at coming here to the state. The move of the exchanges here, it goes alongside of that. Goldman Sachs, as you know, we're approaching 5,000 plus people here, and we're continuing to grow. We think Texas is a great place to be. Central location, pro-business environment, access to talent, growth in the business community all through the state. And I think what the exchanges are recognizing is this is an excellent place to be in the United States, and it's got a lot of tailwinds that are helping the state.
You expect to see that growth continue at the rate it's going, or do you think it was more COVID related when you saw a lot of New York and you saw many northern businesses move down to Texas?
Maybe it's been helped by COVID, but this growth has been going on for years. I think the population of the state 12 or 13 years ago was around 22 million. We're on our way now to 30 million, and we think we will continue to grow. I can't predict the rate. And the reason is there's a lot of very attractive features about Dallas and about the state of Texas that are a magnet for companies to come here.